Is it true that the difference between just making noise and having influence is relationships? I think the three folks that we've heard from tonight certainly make me suspect that there is some truth in that statement. That actually, when you get involved, when people get to know you, they're much more likely to listen to you. The best conversations I have in Parliament are with the people I play five-a-side football with. There is a simplicity to getting to know people that actually wins favour and trust in a way that just shouting, just speaking from a distance, just sending emails. We heard earlier about some of the less pleasant communication from Christians. Most MPs that you talk to would say that most of their unpleasant communication, sadly, their mailbag comes from believers who don't want to actually build bridges and build relationships. Perhaps some of us may be called tonight just to start building a really healthy, positive relationship with an elected representative, whether that's a councillor, whether that's a member of Parliament. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them all the time, but it does mean that you want to tell them when they're doing well as when you think they're not doing so well. But actually, if they know that you're wanting to build a relationship for real, that makes all the difference in the communication. I can tell you so many stories where that's happened. So if that's true, if influence is about relationship, what are the next relationships that God might be calling you or I into? My wife has this wonderful picture as she was being called into the world of acting and theatre. She kept praying and she kept seeing people who were just that little bit further along the journey. As she saw it in her mind, she was standing at the edge of a beach and there were people stood there like Anthony Gormley's amazing statues, just the next step, just somebody to take you to the next step, just somebody to take you to the next step. And often I'm speaking to people who are agonizing over which party to join or whether I should be in a party or whether I should just be campaigning or whether I should just be doing research, whether I should just be doing grassroots work. And the truth is, all of the above, not all at the same time, but, all of them are valid and it's about being called. The most important thing is not to be paralyzed by the choice and that we never do any of them. God will call each of us individually to those things. But quite often, from my experience, we are called into those things via relationship, via the chance conversation in the supermarket, via the person who we're helping with clean up an estate. And they say, oh, actually, I'm in a party. Do you want to come to our meeting? Where is the favour? Where have the doors opened? And sometimes that relational reason is actually as important as some of the policy reasons that you might have for getting involved and the passions that you might have getting involved. So who is that next person? Who is that conversation that actually that maybe you've already had? So if that is true and that he is calling us to build and do the hard yards of relationship, what does it mean for how we operate? I will never forget the privilege of putting on an event. We were launching a new thing and everybody was very excited about it. So we had a big launch event in Parliament. There were 200 people crammed into a room in the House of Lords designed for 120 people. It was very exciting and people were talking about it and it was on social media and our website had got 40, 50,000 hits. It was all very exciting. And the hilarious thing about the event was that it was on November the 5th. It was on Bonfire Night, which is ironic if you're not doing the processing yet. It's an ironic time to have an event in Parliament where you're trying to start an insurgency. And but as I was praying what to share that night on the 5th of November, I really strongly felt God nudge me and say, you've got folks who are coming tonight who've been getting excited about this new thing, this new website, this new sense of people coming together. People have been getting excited about this, but you need to put a pin in that balloon. Actually, that people are coming tonight expecting fireworks. But the same was true in first century Palestine. People were coming expecting fireworks, expecting a quick fix, expecting a fast victory, expecting noise. But the same was true in first century Palestine. People wanted a quick win. People wanted a revolution that was very physical. They came expecting fireworks, and what they got was a bloke talking about mustard seeds. And that didn't please or impress some people. But can we cope with that being what we're stepping into, knowing that there might not be tangible results, knowing that there might not be great testimonies to share in the first year, in the second year, even in the third or fourth year? Could we cope with knowing that what we're involved in is a mustard seed project? They got somebody talking about mustard seeds. All those beautiful images, the yeast working through the dough that Jesus used to describe the movement and the growth of the kingdom of God. There's an amazing book by a Japanese theologian called Kosuke Koyama called 3 God. And in it he talks about how frustrating it is that it seems like the kingdom of God moves excruciatingly slow at 3 but actually how beautiful a thing it is that movement and that speed is unstoppable. And sometimes we need to stop and remember what story we are in, and remember what the end of the story is, and remember how it all turns out, and how that should change our tone, and how that should change how we interact with others around us. Because we know the end of the story. So we shouldn't have that siege mentality, that it's all going wrong and it's all going to pot, and and that changes our tone and we become defensive. I know that all too well from Northern Ireland. I come from the Protestant people of Northern Ireland who have a bit of a siege mentality that the Catholics are going to outbreed us. I know the tone that comes from fearing the future. And we shouldn't fear the future. Yes, we prophetically speak up for what we know to be true in the here and now. And we don't not challenge stuff. We do. But we do it with a tone that reveals that we know where we're heading and how it's going to turn out. That we have a 3 God who, to be honest, we often pray to and complain to in the same way that David did. Say, how long, God? How long is it going to take to see transformation in our nation? How long is it going to take to see truth, justice and righteousness in our leadership? How long, God? But there are those times when we need to remember that what kind of kingdom we're in. They came expecting fireworks. And what they got was a bloke talking about a mustard seed. Are we prepared to do the long, hard yards of relationship building, of slow growth, to be part of something, yes, that might be slow, and yes, will take a bit longer, because to do things relationally takes a lot longer, as any church leader will tell you. It's much easier to just do programs and go bash, big numbers, big wow, big blitz, big glitz. Much harder to do it the slower relational, but I think the kingdom of God way. Not that there aren't moments of great crisis and great conversion and great wonders. Those things are great, but actually most of the time we're called to the hard yards of working with the 3 God. Seeing the incredible yeast working through the dough. Seeing the beauty of what the mustard seed becomes. And my goodness, is that not needed in our nation right now? With the Brexit divide that has opened, the cultural divide that has opened, that actually could become a cultural chasm. And I'm actually really proud that the people I know in politics and the people I know in the church are some of the few people who are actually actively stepping across the divide to interact with people they don't know. You think of all the churches and projects and programs where believers have moved into housing estates, which are very different to the places that they've come from, and they're understanding and getting to know a whole other way of life. And learning from that process, as well as sometimes bringing some hope and light. I think of my political friends who are knocking doors in neighbourhoods where they would never go. But again, they are then hearing stories and hearing the joys and struggles of people who are not like them. And we so easily could descend into where things have gone in the States, where there are just 2 separate cultures and 2 separate worlds. And will we be those people who stand in the gap and build relationship one to the other? It's utterly, utterly vital. John 13, chapter 3 says this. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. It's an incredible verse. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. What a moment of self-realization. How powerful would you feel at that moment? How able to do miraculous, incredible things. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. If I was realizing that, I think I would want to get out there and do some damage. I want to do some change. I want to see some transformation now. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. Do you know what the next section of that verse says? So he got up from the meal took off his outer clothing and wrapped the towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Could we follow Jesus into that place of servant leadership, that beautiful place of service, that beautiful place of relationship building, of putting ourselves last and putting others first, that inevitably takes longer and is harder work than lording it over people and just achieving power and doing it that way? Could we be those who follow him into this mission field of politics, to serve and to see that mustard seed do something incredibly beautiful? Our prayer tonight is that you would know what he is calling each of you to. And it may be to be a candidate, but it may be to run a website for a candidate. It may be to do the admin for a candidate. It may be to just do the prayer support for somebody who's stepping forward. It may be to get involved in research. It may be to keep doing the campaigning that you're already doing, but to do it in a more relational way. Who is that next person? Who is that next person standing a little bit further out into the sea who could bring you on, who could take you on, who you could bless in the process? Because there's another reason. There is another reason why the relationships thing is so important. And it's not just functional. Is that if we do this in a relational way, if we do this in a way that honors people and connects with people and shares heart with people, it means they might just get to know the one who's the reason behind why we're doing it in the first place. This is not just about sorting out the world. This is about revealing who he is to people in the hope that they will see who he is and also follow him too and come with us on that journey. It's not just a functional thing. It's not just sorting out the world. This is a mission field as much as any other mission field. That's why relationships are important as well. And that's why we're praying that you'll join us with Christians in Politics and get stuck in.